What happens when a beloved country music legend sits down for what should have been a routine interview only to face the most disrespectful treatment of his entire career? What happens when decades of professionalism collide with modern television arrogance? Today, we're breaking down the shocking on-air confrontation that ended with Joy Behar storming off her own show after Willie Nelson delivered one of the most devastating clapbacks in daytime TV history. Make sure you subscribe and drop a comment, because this story is wild from start to finish. The studio lights were blazing that Tuesday morning as Willie Nelson settled into the guest chair on The View. At 90 years old, he'd done thousands of interviews from Johnny Carson to David Letterman. But something felt off today. The energy was tense, and Joy Behar was already agitated before cameras had even started rolling. "We're back in 30 seconds," the floor manager called out. Willie adjusted his signature braids, reviewing mental notes about his new album and upcoming tour dates. He was genuinely excited. The View had a massive audience that didn't usually listen to country music. Across the table, Joy shuffled through her note cards with visible irritation. "I still don't understand why we're giving this much time to someone whose music peaked in the 70s, she muttered loud enough for Willie to hear. Whoopi shot her a warning look. "Joy, he's right there." "Oh, please." Like he doesn't know his relevance expired decades ago. Willie didn't react, but his eyes said everything. In all his years in show business, he had rarely seen such blatant disrespect before an interview even began. "And we're live in 5:43. Welcome back to The View," Whoopi began smoothly. "We're here with country music legend Willie Nelson, who's just released his 73rd studio album." "Thank you for having me," Willie replied in his gentle drawl. Joy jumped in immediately. "So, Willie, let's be honest. 73 albums. Don't you think you're just recycling the same old material? I mean, how many times can you sing about trucks and heartbreak?" The other hosts froze. Alyssa looked down. Sarah shifted in her seat. Willie stayed calm. "Well, Joy, I appreciate your question, though. I think you might be confusing me with a stereotype. My new album explores themes of social justice, environmental consciousness, and spiritual growth." "Oh, come on." Joy laughed sharply. "You're 90 years old singing about social justice. Isn't it time to retire and let younger, more relevant artists take the spotlight?" The audience murmured. "I find it interesting," Willie replied, "that you'd suggest someone should stop pursuing their passion based on age. Some might call that ageistic." Joy's face flushed. "I'm just being realistic. Your generation had its time. This is the 21st century. And yet here I am," Willie said evenly. "Still creating, still touring, still playing for tens of thousands of people, many of them under 30. That's just nostalgia tourism," Joy snapped. Whoopi attempted to shift the conversation. "Willie, tell us about your collaboration with Billie Eilish." But Joy cut in again. "Wait, you collaborated with Billie Eilish? That poor girl probably had no idea what she was getting into. Did you even understand her music? Or were you just trying to stay relevant?" Silence. Even the cameras seemed to hum louder. Willie leaned forward. "Joy, I've worked with Ray Charles, Snoop Dogg, Dolly Parton, Norah Jones, artists of every generation. Collaboration isn't about staying relevant. It's about respecting others' artistry." "Oh, please," Joy scoffed. "Those young artists were just doing charity work." Someone in the back of the audience finally shouted, "That's enough, Joy." Alyssa tried again to redirect. "Willie, your work with Faraday has been incredible." Joy cut her off. "Farmed, don't get me started. You've been beating that dead horse for 40 years. Maybe if farmers actually adapted to modern agriculture instead of relying on handouts from has-been musicians, they wouldn't need charity concerts." Gasps. Actual gasps from the crowd. This one hit Willie somewhere deeper. "Joy," he said quietly, "you might want to be careful dismissing the struggles of American farmers. These are people who feed our nation, often at great personal cost." "Spare me the Heartland lecture," she snapped. "This isn't 1985, Joy snapped. "Get with the times." Sarah Haynes looked like she wanted to crawl under the table. Behind the cameras, the production team was frantically waving their arms, silently begging Joy to stop, but she seemed completely unaware of the disaster she was creating live on national television. Willie leaned back in his chair, studying her with the calm patience of someone who dealt with difficult people his entire life. "You know, Joy, he began softly. I've been on a lot of TV shows over the years. I've sat with people who disagreed with me, people who didn't understand my music, even people who didn't particularly like me. But I've never met someone so determined to be disrespectful to a guest. Disrespectful. Joy laughed sharply. I'm just asking the tough questions everyone else is too polite to ask. Someone has to tell you your time is up. And you appointed yourself to that job? Willie asked quietly. Somebody has to, she snapped. The music industry is too scared to hurt your feelings. The tension in the room grew thick enough to cut. Camera operators zoomed in, sensing something significant was building. Willie's band members in the front row whispered among themselves, one shaking his head in disbelief. Whoopi attempted another rescue. Willie, let's talk about your guitar. Trigger. Such an iconic instrument. But Joy cut her off. That old guitar. Honestly, it looks like it belongs in a museum, not on a stage. How do you even play something that beat up? Willie's hand moved instinctively toward Trigger, resting beside his chair. The instrument had been with him for over 50 years. Its scars, holes, and where marks a timeline of his entire life. This guitar, Willie said quietly, has been with me through every song I've written, every stage I've stood on, every moment of joy and sorrow. It's not beat-up joy. It's seasoned. Seasoned, Joy sneered. It's falling apart, just like your career. The line hung in the air like smoke from a fire that had finally gone too far. Willie looked at her for a long moment. Then, unexpectedly, he smiled. It wasn't anger. It wasn't defensiveness. It was the smile of someone who had reached the end of his patience with grace still intact, but boundaries firmly set. You know what, Joy? Willie said, his voice taking on a new weight. I think we need to have a real conversation. Not the fake TV version you've been pushing, but an honest one. Joy rolled her eyes. Great. Here comes the folksy wisdom. No, Willie replied calmly. Here comes the truth. The studio fell silent. For the last 10 minutes, you've tried to tear down a 90-year-old man on national television. You've insulted my music, my age, my collaborators, my causes, and now my guitar. So, tell me, what exactly do you think you're accomplishing? I'm doing journalism, Joy fired back. I'm asking the questions that matter. Willie chuckled softly, a sound that was somehow both warm and razor-sharp. That's what you call this because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you're trying to humiliate a guest to make yourself feel important. The silence deepened. Even the air conditioning hum felt loud. I don't need to make myself feel important, Joy snapped. I've been doing television longer than most people have been alive. And yet, Willie replied, in all my years in entertainment, I've never seen someone work so hard to make themselves look so small. Joy's face went purple. Excuse me. You heard me, Willie said, still smiling. You're trying to diminish someone else's lifetime of work, and all you're really doing is showing the world what kind of person you are. Willie, maybe we should Whoopi tried it again. No, Whoopi, Willie said gently but firmly. Joy wanted honesty. So, let's have honesty. He turned back to Joy. You've made it clear you think I'm irrelevant, that my music doesn't matter, that my causes don't matter. But here's what I find interesting. He paused. You sure seem to know a lot about my career for someone who claims it's worthless. Joy opened her mouth, but Willie continued. You brought up my collaborations with younger artists. You brought up Farhade. You know about all 73 albums. That's a lot of research for someone whose time is over. I do my research, Joy snapped defensively. Or, Willie said with a calm smile. Maybe you've been listening longer than you want to admit. Maybe something about this old, supposedly irrelevant music keeps drawing you back. That's ridiculous. Is it? Willie leaned back, fully relaxed now. Because I've noticed that the people who go out of their way to attack artists they claim not to care about are usually fighting something inside themselves. Don't psychoanalyze me, old man. Gasps rippled through the audience. Sarah Haynes covered her face. Willie raised an eyebrow. Old man. Well, at least you're being honest. That's progress. Better than hiding behind fake journalism. It's not bias. Joy snapped. It's reality. You're old. Your music is old. And your time is over. And yet, Willie replied calmly. Here I am on your show promoting my 73rd album, which debuted at #1 on the country charts last week. Willie's voice stayed maddeningly calm. Funny how irrelevant artists still manage to top the charts. Joy's face tightened. The country charts aren't real music charts. The The studio exploded. Audience members stood up shouting, "That's enough, lady." A man yelled. A woman near the front pointed at Joy. "Shame on you." Willie raised a hand. The room fell silent almost instantly. The quiet respect commanded by that single gesture wasn't lost on anyone. "It's all right, folks," Willie said gently. "Joy has a right to her opinion, even if it's rooted in ignorance." "Ignorance?" Joy nearly screeched. "Yes," Willie said plainly. "Ignorance. You just dismissed an entire genre that's influenced everything from rock to hip-hop. You insulted millions of fans who find comfort and joy in country music. And you did it while proving you don't actually understand what you're talking about." Alyssa finally stepped in. "Willie, your influence on music is undeniable. Artists across every genre cite you as inspiration." "Thank you, Alyssa." Willie nodded politely, then turned back to Joy. "But I don't think Joy wants to talk about influence or impact. I think she's more interested in performing cruelty for entertainment." "I'm not being cruel," Joy protested. "Are you?" Willie asked softly. "Let me ask you something, Joy. When you go home tonight and look in the mirror, are you going to be proud of how you treated a guest today? Are you going to feel good about spending national airtime trying to hurt someone's feelings?" Joy's mouth opened and closed uselessly. "Because that's what this is really about," Willie continued. "You thought you could use your platform to make an old man feel small. You thought you could embarrass me, diminish me, maybe get a viral moment out of it. That's not what I was doing." "Then explain it," Willie said calmly. "Explain to the millions watching why you thought it was appropriate to attack a guest who came here in good faith to talk about his music." Joy looked around desperately. Her co-hosts were staring at their notes. The audience stared at her with disappointment. The crew behind the cameras looked humiliated on her behalf. "I was asking legitimate questions about relevance in the industry," she said weakly. "Legitimate questions?" Willie repeated, nodding as if considering it. "I see. So when you said my collaborators were charity cases, that was legitimate. When you mocked farmers fighting to save their land, that was journalism. When you called my guitar falling apart, that was professional inquiry." Each line hit her like a hammer. Joy's defensiveness began to crumble. "You're twisting my words," she insisted. "Am I?" Willie asked. "Let's review what you actually said." His voice took on the tone of a teacher correcting a struggling student. "You said I recycle old material. You said I should retire and get out of the way. You said young artists work with me out of pity. You called farm a dead horse and farmers beggars. You said my guitar belongs in a museum, and you said my career is falling apart." He paused. "Did I miss anything?" The simplicity of the recap was devastating. Hearing her own actions reflected back at her, Joy seemed to shrink in her chair. "I was making points about the industry," she muttered. "No, Joy," Willie replied quietly. "You were being mean. There's a difference between analysis and personal attacks. You crossed that line in the first 30 seconds. Sarah Haynes finally spoke. "Willie, your grace under pressure is remarkable." "Thank you, Sarah." Then turning back to Joy. "And just to be clear, I'm not upset about your opinion of my music. People have their tastes. What concerns me is the gleeful cruelty with which you expressed it." Joy's face was now a swirl of reds and purples. "I wasn't being cruel. I wasn't." Willie faced her squarely. "Joy, let me tell you something that may help you going forward. When you attack someone's life's work with obvious pleasure, when you mock their age, when you belittle things that are deeply meaningful to them, that's cruelty. And doing it on television doesn't make it journalism. It makes it public humiliation." The weight of his words settled over the studio. Joy opened her mouth to respond, but Willie wasn't done. "And here's what really bothers me," he said. His voice grew stronger. "You've built a career claiming to speak for the underdog, for the marginalized, for people who need a voice. But today you used your platform to attack someone you thought was vulnerable because of their age. That isn't brave journalism," Willie said softly. "That's bullying." Joy's composure finally shattered. "How dare you call me a bully?" She snapped. "I fought for civil rights, for women's rights, for every progressive cause. And yet here you are," Willie interrupted, "displaying ageism on national television. How do you reconcile those two things?" "I'm not a gist," Joy shot back. "I just think you should know when to step aside." "For who?" Willie asked. "For you? Because you think you deserve the spotlight more than I do?" The question hung in the air like a thrown gauntlet. Joy's face twisted. "I've earned my place in this industry. I don't need some washed-up cowboy lecturing me about my career." The insult snapped the audience. "Apologize?" Someone shouted. "That's horrible." Another yelled. Willie stood. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't posture or threaten. He simply stood with his guitar in hand, and the room went silent. "Joy," he said quietly, "I came here today to talk about music, about bringing people together, about finding common ground in difficult times. Instead, you've chosen to showcase everything that's wrong with modern discourse. You've been disrespectful, cruel, and frankly embarrassing to yourself and to this show. Don't lecture me." Joy shrieked, leaping to her feet. "I don't have to sit here and take this from some has-been nobody." Whoopi's face drained of color. "Joy, stop." But Joy was too far gone. "You want the truth?" she spat. "Your music was never that good. You got lucky in the 70s, and you've been coasting ever since. Now you're just a pathetic old man trying to stay relevant." A stunned silence swallowed the studio. Even the cameras froze. Willie looked at her for a long, quiet moment. Then he shook his head. "In 90 years on this earth," he said, "I've learned that when someone attacks you this viciously, it usually says more about them than about you." He turned to address the audience directly. "Folks, thank you for your kindness today. Music is meant to bring us together. I hope that's what we can focus on moving forward." Joy trembled with pure rage. "Don't you dare dismiss me. I'm talking to you." Willie faced her again, his expression almost gentle. "Joy, you need to ask yourself why you're so angry at a 90-year-old man who just wanted to talk about his new album. What's really eating at you?" "Nothing's eating at me," she barked. "I just can't stand fake, humble acts." "There's nothing fake about showing people respect," Willie said quietly. "You might want to try it sometime." That did it. Joy's face crumpled with fury and humiliation. She'd been outmaneuvered, exposed by the man she had tried to humiliate, and everyone could see it. "I'm done with this," she screamed. "I don't have to sit here and be lectured by some irrelevant fossil." She ripped off her microphone and hurled it to the floor. "You can finish this disaster without me." As she stormed toward the exit, Willie called after her softly. "Joy, I hope you find whatever it is you're looking for." She spun one last time. "Go to hell, Willie." Then she was gone. The studio sat in stunned silence. Willie eased back into his seat and lifted his guitar. "Well," he said with a small smile, "I guess we've got some extra time to talk about music." The audience erupted into relieved applause as the tension finally broke. Whoopi, pale but professional, forced a smile. "Willie Nelson, everyone, his new album is available now." Willie strummed a gentle chord. "Sometimes," he said to the camera, "the most important thing you can do is keep making music." And just like that, he transformed one of the most uncomfortable television moments in recent memory into a masterclass in dignity, respect, and staying true to yourself, even when someone else is trying to tear you down.